Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and before I jump into this week's comics, I do the viewer's pick of the week at the end of the video, so be sure to let me know your pick of the week for a chance to be featured on the episode. Now, yes, I was gone for 2 weeks, so thank you for allowing me to take a little bit of a vacation, a little bit of a hiatus, but I am back with my continuous schedule for reviews. This week there were 9 comics. I'll also mention, if you wanted my thoughts on last week's comics, I do a comic book podcast on Comic Book Weekly where I did discuss those comics. So if you're missing my thoughts on that, definitely go check that out. And also the news on the James Gunn's movies, the new DC titles. It's a fun podcast I do every week. Now let's get into it. Number 9 for me was actually a book I was really looking forward to, so I was a bit disappointed to see it so low, and that was Blood Tree issue 1. Now this is a detective story, and they're trying to go up against this kind of boogeyman character. There's angel-like creatures involved in this one as well. And the reason for me why this was a little bit lower was just because I felt that I was kind of going into a middle of a story in the regard of I didn't really feel like I knew these characters very well, and I didn't really feel connected to the mystery, and I thought the artwork was kind of plain for this one too. So for me, there wasn't anything to really attach myself to say, oh, I'm interested in this mystery, I'm interested in these characters. So overall, giving that 2 stars, and that is number 9. Moving on to number 8, which is Dark Web Finale issue 1. Let's talk about it. This is the title of the video. Now, granted, this is somewhat of an X-Men and Spider-Man event. It was publicized as that. But honestly, after reading this, I feel like the only consequences that came out of this story was more X-Men related than Spider-Man related, even though it spanned out the pages of Spider-Man a bit more than X-Men. You had the spin-off tie-in, but it didn't actually deal with the X-Men flagship book like it did Amazing Spider-Man. And in the end of this one, you know, there's a battle. Of course, we get to see Ben versus the X-Men and Spider-Man. But really, it's Madelyne Pryor capturing Ben and saying, all right, let's see how I'm going to punish you. And Spider-Man kind of feeling bad for Ben, but also saying, hey, you kind of ruined my life, so that's not a great situation. And in the end, we get to see Madelyne Pryor have a limbo embassy. So it's part of New York City, kind of like a Doctor Strange type house, and it's just in the middle of New York City. We see Madelyne get, I guess, a little bit more power in that regard. And honestly, yes, I know this whole event was about limbo. I just didn't find that to be a satisfying ending or even a reason to have this event. It felt like it was so much more X-Men driven than it was Spider-Man driven, and I kept going back to, why did we have this event? I don't think it really made Ben Reilly fans happy, even though he was the main character of this. I don't know if this beat really counts for X-Men. It just felt off to me. I also thought the artwork wasn't as strong as the other art styles for the regular flagship Amazing Spider-Man book. So overall, I was pretty disappointed with this one. So giving that 2 stars, and that is number 8. Moving on to number 7, which is Captain America Sentinel of Liberty, issue 9. And this issue, we get to see the build-up, I'm sure, this Cold War event. And it's honestly more of a build-up to get to MODOK, right? So the whole issue is kind of gearing into that. And for me, I'm not a huge MODOK fan, so once we got to that revelation, I was like, okay. It just didn't interest me that much. But I do think the artwork was pretty good. I just didn't think there was as much character beats as it usually has. It did feel more like an action issue to get to more action. So giving that one 2 stars, I believe. Yeah, that was 2 stars. So number 6 for me is Lazarus Planet Legends Reborn, issue 1. I got this because I was interested mostly in the question. And then also there's another random issue I have to get at Lazarus Planet because if I want to continue the Captain Marvel story, which I did like from last issue. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'll just get this random issue of Lazarus Planet. And I also wasn't getting that many books this week. So I grabbed it, and I will say I liked half of the stories. I'm very curious about the Firestorm story, not Firestar. And because it does end in a way where it seems like they're going to get their own series, and I was happy to see that because one of my biggest complaints of this was, you know, there's some really interesting characters that never get the spotlight, but then they're just getting the short story to not really tell a full story. But Firestorm actually ends on a pretty big cliffhanger with Stein's character, and it just had promise for me to want to continue that, and again, promise that maybe he'll get his own miniseries or own ongoing series, most likely a miniseries. Now, I also liked the question, because again, that's the reason I read it. I just enjoyed seeing Renee. It was a very one and done type story. I don't think it changed the character in any regard, but I still had a fun time with it. I thought the artwork was good. The other stories, the Raven story, and I'm blanking on who even the other character was that showed up in this one. There's usually 4 stories. Oh, it was a Nightwing story, because we don't have enough Nightwing stories. So those 2, surprisingly enough, the Teen Titans stuff, I wasn't as interested in, but the 2 characters you don't get to see a lot from. I'm like, oh, this is, like, useful pages to use for them, because, again, there's not another series to explore that. So overall, giving that 2.5 stars. Again, neither blew my mind, so I couldn't really cross that 3-star placement, but I did enjoy it enough. So giving that number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is Rogue Sun issue 10. And there's some interesting tidbits in this one. We get to see another Rogue Sun type character from medieval times teaching our main character to, be a hero. And there's some family drama mixed in. There's some school drama. But that's also the reason why was a little bit lower of this issue, because I feel like there was a lot going on. There was this medieval character. There was times where you flip the book. I think I could even show it to you. You flip the book and it's in a whole different style, because they kind of go into a different world, which I love about Rogue Sun, that they're always trying to experiment. But yeah, I just felt very, I wish there was just one track for this one. It felt like there's just too much being picked at here. But I like the art. Obviously, I like these characters. I'm curious to see where it's going to go. So overall, giving that one 3 stars. Moving on to number 4, which is the Flash 1 Minute War Special. The reason this is a little higher, even though I don't think either story was like, whoa, I can't wait to see where that goes, there was really a big purpose for this one. These are characters that don't have enough space in the main story to have a little bit of a spotlight. And that's what these specials should be. That's what these short stories should be. And we get that with Jay. We get that with, I forget her name, but the newer Flash from the New 52. We get that with Godspeed. We even get that with the villain. And I'm like, all right, you have a good hosh-posh of stories here. Again, none of them blew my mind, but I was like, all right, if you're a Flash fan, I think you're going to be able to find something to love here, or at least enjoy. And that is why I gave that one 3 stars. Artwork was pretty solid for all the stories as well. So that's number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is Scarlet Witch issue 2. I was a little torn on this one because I was excited to see Viv Vision, but I will say this definitely felt very inside baseball of Scarlet Witch. So if you don't know that much about the character, especially if you're just watched WandaVision, you're just picking it up because of that, or you just haven't read that much with WandaVision, I don't know how much you're going to be able to sink your teeth into this. This is very much for the hardcore fans of the character. And for me, I am a moderate fan of Scarlet Witch. Obviously I know of the character in X-Men books, but never followed stories just for Scarlet Witch. And obviously if you read Vision, the Tom King book, that has a lot to do with this story as well. And a lot of it's kind of just explaining those things. But I really like the moments between Viv and Scarlet Witch, and I felt like that was really unique and felt different to me. And it tempts me to want to buy more. But I also keep my reservations, and I'm like, maybe it is too much inside baseball for me to kind of fall in love with this series. But the art is nice and dark. It's Sarah Pichelli. I think it really works for this book overall. So giving that 3 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is Bloodline, Daughter of Blade. Somewhat has the same issue of other Marvel books that I've recently read, where it doesn't really feel like it has its own flavor when it comes to tone. It's just about a teenage girl who finds out that she's related to Blade, that mythology. Or it doesn't even find out in the end of the issue, but we kind of know that. But I liked her. I enjoyed her character. And gave me enough to say, hey, I want to see where she goes in issue 2. I liked her relationship with her mom. I liked that her mom kind of knew a little bit more about the vampire stuff. I think it sets up a world that should be interesting enough to follow these characters. The artwork was okay. I don't think that really stood out overall. Maybe that's a big reason why tonally I didn't feel like this had much of a distinction. But I liked it enough to see where this one goes, and I liked the characters enough to see where this goes. So overall, giving that 3 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, which is Radiant Black, issue 21. This is a pretty fun issue. We get to see the 2 Radiants working together to try to figure out what to do with this robot, and then also fight the newest villain as well that we've been seeing in previous issues. And what I liked about this issue and why it was my pick of the week, I mean, obviously the art is always so crisp and really balances the slice of life aspect of the series, Peter Parker aspect of the series, and the, you know, more Spider-Man superhero aspect. That's kind of what it reminds me of. Or, you know, obviously Power Rangers, where you have the civvies idea and then the actual Power Rangers action. And I think this issue did a good job at balancing that and actually getting us to see Marshall and Nathan's friendship a little bit more, which I think is very much the key to this series and what makes it so fun and why it feels like it's putting the superhero genre on its head is those two characters. And I feel like there's a lot of fun moments with that, them switching the costume throughout. So overall, it doesn't move the plot that much, but I think it was a pretty good character issue and a fun issue that's necessary for character building. So overall, giving that 3.5 stars, that is my pick of the week. Let me know in the comments below what was your pick of the week. That way you have a chance to be featured on the episode. So hopefully, guys, enjoyed. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.